Hello friends, it's Kelly and I am going to be sketching out an illustration and just chatting with you about something that's on my mind right now. January is often a time for change for a lot of people, and part of that is job career changes. I know I have done that before in the past, used the new year as a time to evaluate whether I wanted to be in a specific job or not. And even this year, I have several people in my life who are changing careers or putting in their resignations. And this was all just making me think about my career and my history of being in different jobs. And of course, I have a lot of years left to go in terms of working, but I have had several jobs in the past decade, and one of them sticks out as kind of like a dream artist job that actually I wasn't completely content with, and I ended up quitting that job. And so I just wanted to talk about that experience for me and why, maybe there are some things that you should evaluate in your own career, and just give kind of a warning too for people who are looking for artistic careers and are hoping to be in one someday. And of course, as always, I just want to say that this is my own personal experience and doesn't reflect any specific industry completely, or isn't going to be a guarantee of how you might experience a certain industry. And everybody, has a different story. And so this is just my story, and I hope that it is helpful for somebody. And I think that it's important to share these things because I have always found people sharing their stories to be very helpful when I am looking at a similar decision. So with all of that said, let me just go into kind of what I was doing at the time. So I was working at an artistic nonprofit, and that's going to be obviously a lot different than working in like a corporate artistic position. But I've had a lot of experience with artistic nonprofits in the past, and this job that I decided to go for was after I had been working someplace I was very unhappy with, and wasn't artistic at all, and I really wanted to try to go back into an artistic nonprofit and see if I can find a place for myself and find a real career there. My previous experiences had only been part-time positions, and so eventually I did have to find a full-time corporate position. And so I finally found an artistic nonprofit position that was full-time. And so I was really excited to do that. I was working, mostly administratively. That's kind of where my history is. But I was working very closely with a lot of really artistic, creative people. It was an atmosphere where I got to see a lot of beautiful, beautiful art and, interact with these really, really talented artists. And of course, I'm not going to name the name of this nonprofit, but overall, it was like such, a cool experience, a cool opportunity. They offered some classes where I was able to get a pretty big tuition discount, and so I got to even take some painting classes and learn from some really amazing people. And so on paper, it seems like this perfect job, and it was definitely really fun, and it was challenging. I was working really, really hard, and I was learning a lot of really new, exciting things, which I love in a job. I love to be busy. I love to learn something new. But there were always some things that were pretty challenging. The first challenge, and I think the first thing you should evaluate when you're looking at your own job, is how much time it's taking from you and what time it's taking from you. Thankfully, I was not working extreme overtime or being worked to the bone or anything like that. But I was working a lot of weekends and evenings to help facilitate certain events and other sort of things going on. And so with that, I kind of lost out on the opportunity to be social, to have a social life, because most other people were working, during the day and then having free time in the evenings and on weekends. And at the time, I also was trying to do some like online dating, and it's really hard to do those things and to have a social life when most people have different schedules than you. And that was something I was willing to sacrifice for a while, but after several months, it does kind of get to you that you aren't able to go to the, places you want to be at and gatherings of people. And so your social life could take a dive if you're working a lot of evenings and weekends. And I know too, saying all of this, like, there are some people who have to work jobs where they, have to work evenings and weekends. And, if you have a night shift or anything like that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think that for me at that time, I was really losing out on a lot socially because I was working evenings and weekends. Another thing you should really look at if you are considering a job change is your energy and stress levels, because not every job is made the same in terms of how much energy it's going to take from you. And with this particular job, my energy was just sapped. After every shift, every time I came home, I was exhausted. And I definitely think I, enjoy working hard and I enjoy having a lot of stuff on my plate. But, when I did have free evenings or free weekends, I didn't have the energy to go hang out with friends or to go on dates because I was so exhausted from my work. So my free time was spent just recovering from my job. Also, it was really hard as a creative person, as an artist myself, to not have the energy to be creative and make new things because my job was taking so much of that from me. And so I really didn't have anything left to put into not only my relationships, but also into my creative life. And so that really was taking a toll on me as well. And it was hard to do that on such a regular basis. And it felt like I wasn't fulfilling the things I wanted to fulfill because I was spending all of my energy at work. So definitely think about that if you're considering changing jobs. Are you just exhausted and can't do anything else when you come home? I know there's an opposite, a far extreme to that as well, where some people don't have enough to do at work and aren't being utilized as much as they want to. And those are important things to think about as well. But for this specific job for me, I was giving it my all, and unfortunately, it wasn't giving a lot back. And that brings me to my next point, is money. Unfortunately, you have to consider finances when you are taking a job. And a lot of these quote unquote dream jobs, there are a lot of people who want them. And because of that, supply and demand dictates that, they're going to pay people less because they know they can replace you very easily because there's a long line of people who want the job. It's the job that people don't want that's going to pay more. And obviously you might not want the job nobody wants, but there is an overlap there where you can find something that is maybe a little off the beaten track where you will be, properly rewarded for your efforts. I will say when I was at this dream job, I was working way harder than a lot of other jobs, but I was being paid way less. And that is something to consider and be aware of, because if you're stressed about money, that's going to take even more energy from you and more it's going to take more away from your mental health. And that's kind of what was starting to happen to me. I had to go back to therapy and counseling, and I had to find other ways to take care of myself. I was always stressed about the money. I was going to the grocery store and like counting every dollar before putting it into my cart. And I was getting everything I needed to survive. It definitely was a livable wage, but it was not a comfortable livable wage. And that's coming from someone who is a very frugal person and really takes care of her finances and doesn't have any debt. And so if you are in the place where you do struggle a little bit, you might need a little more wiggle room in your finances, and that's okay. And even if I had the time to go to social events or do social things, I definitely didn't have the money to do that very much. So like going out for a drink was a push on the budget. And so that can really get to you over time. And part of your finances, and something you should be aware of in a job that you have or would like to take, is make sure you're looking at the benefits in terms of health insurance, 401ks, things of that nature, because that's part of your pay as well. And unfortunately, this specific dream job did not offer any retirement plan. And that was a challenge for me to swallow, because I was realizing, yes, I have my own forms of retirement planning outside of a 401k, but not having a 401k puts more burden on you to make sure you're saving for retirement. And it was hard for me to imagine being there for many more years and like having a whole career at this place where I might not even be able to retire because they don't offer that plan. And I kind of find that as a red flag in general. If a company or nonprofit or any sort of organization is not planning for your future, then they might not have a future with you. Because I think the least they can do is support their employees. And in the US, at least, there are laws where organizations with a certain number of employees do have to offer 401k plans. That is like the law. But this was a small enough organization where they did not have to do that. So that is why there was no 401k. But the fact that they still did not offer that was really concerning to me. There also were no pay raises or a very, very ridiculously low percentage of pay raises. My general thought, if you are in a full-time job, you should get at minimum, and this is really minimum, you really should get minimum 3% pay raise every year. If you're not, then I would think about where you're at, and if you have the ability to change, maybe that is something that you want to do. And at this job, I got maybe less than 1% pay raise. And so you think, oh my goodness, like in 5 years, inflation will be crazy, and then my income won't change at all, and then it's going to be even harder on my finances. So these are things to think about in terms of your finances, in terms of having these jobs that you think are so great, but they usually have so many people vying for these jobs that you can be replaced easily, and they can pay lower amounts. Like, you as an employee lose your leverage because they can find someone else to do it. And so the finances were starting to get to me, and again, added to my stress, added to my mental health load. And so that was really, really challenging. There were a few other concerns too I had about the job. One of which being, because it is a nonprofit, it is reliant on grants and donations. And I was looking at the way things were being run, and they were not being run as efficiently as they could have been in terms of fundraising and grant writing and all of those things. And so it kind of felt like a sinking ship at times. even though, it's several years later and they're still going strong. But it was just really, really, really hard for me to see a long-term future there, and for me to imagine doing that for many more years when I was being so torn down by the time and the effort and the stress, and it was starting to really wear on me. And thankfully I found another opportunity, which is kind of outside of the dream job field, but I am stable and still learning things and in a really good place. And so these are just things to consider. Something else to consider in terms of artistic careers specifically. So if you are in a place, if you are in a place where you're evaluating what you want your career to look like, and if this job you're in matches what you want, make sure to also consider those things, like specifically your time, your energy, and your money. Are those 3 needs being met in this job? Or are you receiving some other form of payment that is worth maybe not getting paid as much? And I would argue that form of payment should not just be status. You should not take a job just because it sounds cool or because you can go back to your family get-togethers and say that you're doing this cool thing, or tell your friends that you're, doing this thing and they're all going to be in awe with you. But if you're not being able to have the flexibility to, say, get a coffee every once in a while from Starbucks, like, that's stressful. That's stressful when you don't have financial freedom, or the freedom of your time, or the freedom of your energy. Those are really important things for a content life. And so I really encourage you to look at that. But again, every situation is different, and your values might be different as well. But definitely, do that as well. List out what your values are, what you want your life to look like, and make sure you are in a job where those things match. Currently, I'm about 2 years out of that previous dream job, and I am just way less stressed about money, about my time, about my energy. Some of that stress never really leaves, but I am so much more comfortable going out to eat with my friends once in a while. Having a little bit of freedom is so, so nice. I even had time to go on dates, and now I've been dating someone for over a year, and that is huge. That was a high value for me. I have a much more robust retirement plan going, and that is going strong and steady, and I don't have to worry about that as much. And I was able to do the creative things I wanted to do and continue my artistic journey and have time to even start this YouTube channel. So I have the energy and I have the time and I have the passion to do all these things that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was still in my quote unquote dream job. And so I hope that encourages some people to reevaluate where they're at. And if you do have the ability to change, maybe now is the time. It's a new year. You can have a new resolution to find somewhere where you are valued, where you are treated kindly and with respect, and where you are, supporting a team who's creating some good stuff. And I'll say too, now I'm still in a career where I'm working with a lot of creative people. Everyone's extremely friendly. And I'm doing something that honestly I never thought I would be doing, but I'm enjoying it a lot. If you are really hoping to get into a creative career, my other advice is just that you can find jobs outside of your career and you can still be fulfilled and have the time to be fulfilled creatively in other ways. And I know that's not what everyone wants to hear. Everybody wants to have their dream job and wants to be a full-time artist or work with amazing artistic companies. But I'm finding that I am way more happy working a non-artistic job so that I have the freedom of time and energy and money to spend on my personal creative career and just have fun doing it. But again, everybody's different, everyone's story is different, and everyone's in a different place. And so I do truly wish you the best in this new year, in your career journey, in your artistic journey, in whatever changes that you're trying to make this year. If you've been following the channel, I am trying to draw every day. Some days I just draw a little bit and work on one project over the week, or some days I do a full sketchbook spread. I'm just doing a little bit of everything, but as long as I pick up a drawing tool at some point during the day and scribble something out, that is what matters. I'm just trying to get that habit in my brain, because for me, making art is something that is incredibly calming and peaceful to help my mental health. And it's a skill that I want to continue to work on and become better at throughout my entire life. And those are the goals and values that I care about a lot more than I care about my career. So let me know what your thoughts are about all of this. And I didn't even talk about this piece, but I wanted to make something very green and luscious in this little greenhouse. It is winter here and cold and snowing, and so this was just really nice to draw. And the inspiration kind of came from thinking about how sometimes, we are just these little plants, and sometimes we're in the wrong pot or the wrong soil, and we just need to be repotted in something that is better for us. And in the same way, sometimes we just need to leave our environment, whether that's your environment at home or school or at work. And sometimes you need to find a new environment, a new pot where you can blossom and bloom and just grow incredibly. So make sure that you are getting sunlight and getting nutrients and getting water, and you are blossoming like the beautiful plant that you are. So thank you again for joining me, and I will see you in the next video. Happy drawing!